Hi, welcome everybody. This is, in case you're in the wrong room, I hope not, stay anyway. This is going to be a very interesting panel on multi-channel networks. And for those of you in the business, you know what they are. And for those of you new to it, multi-channel networks are really the new multimedia platform world that's been anticipated for years, but it's finally come into its own. It's growing and transforming the underlying foundations of the media business. So now high quality video is available to consumers virtually anywhere, anytime, and the vast majority of video consumption is in bite-sized short form video. So premium content development is now different than it was for that longer form platforms like traditional TV, which require specialized expertise. And that's where the MCNs come in, or the multi-channel networks. They expand the traditional platforms rather than supplant them and enable consumers to consume the full spectrum of entertainment and news on the mobile platform. It creates new personalities and celebrities known to young viewers more than the mainstream celebrities on TV. And we'll talk about all of this today. I'm Judith Dornstein, your moderator. I'm a transactional entertainment attorney with my own boutique law firm, having been a partner in several major law firms before that. I represent creative people, actors, writers, producers, directors, musicians, etc., and independent production companies in TV and film. In the digital world, most recently, I've done agreements for the president of a digital radio station and for an actor, producer of a popular game on one of YouTube's channels. I'd like to briefly introduce each of my panelists, and they will tell you more about themselves in a minute. On my left, I guess on your right, we have John Ferry, who's Senior Counsel at YouTube Google. He spent the last 6 years at Google advising on various large initiatives for YouTube, including acting as the legal head for the creation of YouTube and Google Play transactional content service, funded channels initiative where Google made unprecedented investments in the creation of original digital content, and most recently as advertisers as content creators initiative, where YouTube is working with brands to make more appealing content for users. On the side, John's also a filmmaker and reality show producer. Tom Zadra is currently head of business development and video at Yahoo. He's spent more than 15 years working in traditional and digital media. Prior to Yahoo, he also ran business and legal affairs for Netflix's Envelope Entertainment. That was their first foray into original content. And before that, Tom was vice president of business affairs for Miramax Films. Dan Schechter is head of media entertainment technology practice for LEK Consulting. He works with the big dinosaur entertainment conglomerates as they try to figure out these young mammals called multi-channel networks and to calculate how much they should pay to get into the game. He's worked with internet startups for 17 years and bridges the gap between new media and traditional areas of TV, film, advertising, and other major entertainment sectors. Yemi Adegbonwire, I got that, is a Los Angeles-based intellectual and property and entertainment attorney. Yemi is currently lead commercial counsel for Branded Entertainment embedded at Disney's subsidiary Maker Studios, where she structures, negotiates entertainment, SAS, and digital platform deals for the studio's domestic and international sales, distribution, ad ops, branded entertainment endeavors and issues, rate privacy, data collection, and intellectual property rights. Prior to joining Maker Studios, Yemi was in private practice, and she's also worked for ABC Television Network. And last, but certainly not least, this distinguished attorney, Alan Friel. He is a partner at Baker Hostetler Law Firm, where Alan represents clients in media, advertising, and e-commerce industries on transactional, regulatory, and intellectual property matters. He's also an adjunct professor at UCLA and LMU. So now I'd like to ask each of our panelists to tell us more about their company, an overview of their company and its business model and how they make money and how do your content providers make money? So starting here on my left.
Sure, thanks. Hopefully you guys can all hear me okay. I'm just curious about the audience actually today. I was wondering if you could just raise your hand if you work for in the more traditional media space versus digital platforms. Both? Makes sense. Yeah, that's an interesting mix. So I work at a small, scrappy startup called YouTube. Hopefully we'll make it big someday. But you know, right now we are still a pretty big online video hosting platform with over 1 billion monthly users, which accounts for basically 15% of the world's population, which is kind of mind-blowing when you think about that. We also, for any kind of people who work for brands out there, we also reach the 18 to 34 target demo more than any cable network. And so we serve a lot of purposes, I think, out there, a lot of which are unique to each person who uploads to YouTube. But at the same time, I think if you look at our ultimate goal across the company, it's really to become the world's water cooler, in the sense that it's a community where people go to talk about things like, you know, the Harlem Shake, which is just a cultural phenomenon, or it was a little while ago, all the way out to kind of more serious topics like the protests that are going on in Ferguson or in Syria or in Iran. It's where people can communicate and talk to each other about those important things. And so, so we do a lot of different things as a video platform, and I think it's important that people realize we have this overall goal, because every single thing that we do in terms of investing in the community, investing in creators, things like that, which I'm sure we're going to talk about more, all have to do with sort of building a greater community.
Tom?
I'm Tom Zadra, so I oversee business development for Yahoo's video. What that means is, you know, helping scope opportunities, find opportunities, negotiate deals, herd cats, that sort of thing is that you do at big companies. We have different video businesses that run the gamut from licensing content and rev sharing it. Yahoo's still largely a news and information site, so we have a lot of video on there that's, you know, how do you do this, how do you do that? Whether, you know, the video version of the weather or news and all that stuff. We also do quite a bit of branded entertainment as well as originals. So I think most people here are interested in the originals piece, so that's mostly what I'll talk about. We're so thrilled to know that YouTube's just a little startup, because that makes us feel a lot better at Yahoo. But you know, we have a lot of the same challenges, and as everyone else. Our sort of different position is we already have this existing sort of platform, whatever you want to call it, business. So one of the things we focus more on is, opposed to, you know, how to create a video business within that bigger structure is both.
Thank you. Dan?
Hi, I'm Dan Schechter. My background is I'm a digital guy from way back, undergraduate degree in software, a stint in venture capital, and I'm recovering from a bad video game habit. But the thing here that I'm representing is the media, entertainment, and technology practice of LAK Consulting. And our job is to make companies better and help them make more money, which is a challenge in this space. We work with both digital startups, but also the major entertainment companies to find new customers, grow, find new ways to monetize content. We are notable in that we're doing a lot of work in this whole thing of not only just having short snippets go over the web, but also the longer form entertainment and OTT TV, that's over the top TV. And there's about 6 major ventures that are coming to market in the news over these coming months, and we're working with about half of them.
Thank you. Yemi?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Yemi Adebo-Mary at Maker Studios, and actually currently at the Walt Disney Company. So Maker is a talent-first media and technology company. We have over 55,000 creators in our network, and our videos across that 55,000 creator community get about 9 billion views over the course of a given month, which is incredible. So that means that we have a lot of audience retention. We have pretty long watch times in terms of people when they first get on to YouTube, and YouTube's probably our biggest and most important partner, I think it's fair to say. They will stay and continue to watch beyond the one video they may have tuned in for. And that's been one of the great hallmarks of success of our company, is our ability to create good cross promotion and good collaborative feel amongst our creator community. And that's how we have grown and feel comfortable saying that, at least in this space, we feel like we're the voice of the millennial generation.
Hi,
Thanks.
I'm Alan Friel. I'm a partner of Baker Hostetler, which is a 1,000-lawyer AmLaw 100 firm. I run our advertising, retail, and e-commerce practice. I'm also part of our content, copyright, and platform practice, which is a fancy way of saying media, and our privacy and data security practice. So I represent companies on sort of all sides of these deals.
Thanks, everyone. So, Alan, talking just in general about multi-channel networks, what exactly can you tell everybody about what a multi-channel network is, and how, if it does at all, differ from a company like, say, A&E Television Networks that includes Lifetime and Lifetime Movie Network and Real Women and History Channel, Biography Channel, Military Channel, Crime and Investor Network. So what exactly are MCNs, and how do they differ from these other networks?
Well, I think you'll get a number of different definitions, and there's certainly a number of different business models that would consider themselves to be MCNs. But to make the distinction that you're making between broadcast television or cable television and MCNs is probably the easiest one to make. So, from a business model perspective, with broadcast, you had essentially a distributor that acquired the content and then ran the distribution through a series of affiliates, most of which were independently owned, although some of which were owned by the parent company. And in those circumstances, the creators typically had very little ownership interest left in their property. They may, and things have changed. Certainly, reality programming changed it, where it became even less of an ownership interest. But with syndicated television, you would have much more of an ownership interest, and there was a revenue share. And with sort of traditional primetime television, you might retain the foreign, and then ultimately the game was to get into syndication and get those long-term revenues. Whereas cable and reality has historically been a situation where you're just getting a producer's fee. You're getting a percentage of the budget. The interesting thing about where new media is today is there are a lot of different business models, but for the most part, the creator is retaining the ownership and is getting some kind of advertising revenue split on the content. Sometimes this can be a way to test out content and potentially build up enough of an audience to theoretically end up in television, or more likely it's to build the notoriety of the creative and to get attention. And we can talk a little bit about, as we go on, some of the things to keep in mind as you're considering whether or not you want to sell a product to television or to new media, and what kind of things to think about.
Do you mind if I just expand on that, actually?
Yeah, sure.
So the way that YouTube sees the MCN environment is really exactly what Alan just talked about, in terms of, there are players out there who focus more on aggregation and distribution on behalf of the creators, for sure. And that aggregation can take place either by category. For example, Machinima aggregates gaming content, for example, or it could be by audience. There's an MCN called Me Too, which focuses only on Spanish-speaking content, and it could be any type of content. And so the only kind of trend there is the fact that it's all Spanish-speaking. But then YouTube also views it as pretty much any company that is out there offering services to these YouTube creators, because you'll hear a lot about different companies that don't aggregate content, and yet people refer to them as MCNs still. And so you have people out there who are doing things like talent development on behalf of creators, like The Collective, which works with many channels and is thought of as an MCN. They work with Freddie W., for example, to go get them deals for TV or movies. And you also have rights managers. You may have heard about a company called Zephyr. They actually specialize on taking studio content, so traditional movie studio content that gets matched through our content ID system on YouTube as something that's owned by that particular studio. Maybe it's Disney for Frozen or something like that. And they then pretty much act as an agent on behalf of that studio to apply whatever rights and sort of actions, which could either be to do nothing with that content and just claim it as theirs, or it could be to monetize that content to allow us to go then put ads on it. But that's a very specialized field, and there's already a number of players, not just Zephyr, like Base 79. There's also Bent Pixels. And so this whole area is expanding, and it's beyond just what people think of as content aggregation.
Yeah, so then how does a creator decide, John, between building a YouTube channel or becoming part of one that already exists?
I think that's a great question. I think it's very challenging when you look at the numbers. You know, the fact that we have over 100 hours of content uploaded per minute to YouTube. How do you stick out on that type of platform, right? There's just so much content. And so one thing that we definitely encourage creators to go out and to do if they're thinking about a new channel is to actually collaborate with existing channels that already have subscribers and that already target the demo that they're looking at. It's sort of like the traditional model of, just to take a music example, it's like Jay-Z working with 2 Chainz. Not that I know anything about that, but I thought those were kind of cool references. And collaborating on some music together, you can also have YouTube creators collaborating in that same way and bringing a whole new audience.
Yeah. Well, we're going to throw a little controversy perhaps into the mix. Dan, what do you think about YouTube economics? Do they work, and are there alternatives to YouTube's for MCNs?
Well, there's a love-hate relationship with my colleague down here on my right, your left, in that they have showered richness on the industry, but everybody complains about them. And that the splits that they ask for on advertising are outrageous. And everybody says, I can't make money, no matter how big they are. Even sadder, some large players who actually chisel a slightly better deal out of them are similarly unhappy. Everybody complains, partly because they might even have higher cost content and still have problems making a buck. So what are your options? It's not the highest profit industry. There's some revenue, but there are some ways to maybe make a buck. One of which, and probably it's not negotiating a better deal with YouTube. It is what it is. So if you're really, really big, you can think about mobile in your own platform. So creating your own mobile platform, your own app. So people like Vivo is doing that. You can think about actually developing longer form content that can be monetized in other areas. So people like Funny or Die produce things for HBO and other things where they're extending the brand and making some money from some alternative windows. Some people even get into the physical world. So Lionsgate has a channel called Be Fit, where they do fitness videos, but they also sell DVDs and fitness equipment and all that sort of stuff. You can think about having an output deal with a traditional movie company. So, for example, Fox has deals with some people to develop pilots. You can think about going multi-platform. You think about WWE. They actually have things on YouTube. They have things all around. They have things on free-to-air. They have pay-per-view, and now they're going with OTT TV subscription directly to the subscriber, and are going to soon have 1 million subscribers paying $10 a month outside of the YouTube system. You can hold on, cross your fingers, and hope that the CPMs that you get on YouTube will increase over time, maybe a little bit more ad load and a bit more sell-through, And of course, you can sell out to
Oh.
to Disney or somebody like that to make a buck along the way. So there's a range of options for you.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll take on the sellout piece of it.
Okay.
Yeah, we certainly don't see the opportunities that we provide our creators in any way as being a sellout. They retain, 100% ownership of their content, and we really hope, are here to foster community and provide a knowledge base for creators who need to learn more and understand more about how to create more compelling videos that will engage their audience longer, to increase the watch time, increase the stickiness of their content with their respective communities. And from our perspective, particularly being a talent first in every way that we think about how we built out our business. One of the things that we do, and one of the areas that, I don't know that we've particularly illuminated here, is that, we work with a lot of third-party brand partners to expose our audience to those brands' products. Because one of the things that we found is because our talent and, the YouTube talent come, on a grassroots level, kind of from the ground up, their audiences have grown with them. There is a trust there that with careful curation, we can help a brand seed a positive notion about their brand, or whatever notion about their brand maybe the promotional goal at the time, into the audience's consciousness. And that's always something that we do with the buy-in and input of our talent, who may believe in a particular brand and want to see their audience have an opportunity to use something that's been great for them. So that's another way that we help to create opportunity and create revenue for our talent.
So.
Well, since Dan mentioned a couple things about making money on YouTube and going off platform, I thought I'd address at least a little bit of that. So first of all, Dan had mentioned, maybe some players are out there who negotiate better deals, and that's actually not true. Right now, everybody's on the same deal with YouTube. Secondly, we have thousands of partners on YouTube who make at least 6 figures yearly. So it's not small money necessarily, and you have creators like in the recent journal article, I think with PewDiePie, who's one of the top YouTube creators, he mentioned, and I don't know if this is true, that he makes over $4 million a year off his YouTube content. So I think it's not necessarily small dollars, first of all. And secondly, we've always encouraged people to go off platform, because we've found that when you look at metrics like watch time or number of subscribers and things like that, if partners go off platform in different ways, it actually reinforces the community on YouTube. So it's actually kind of a nice virtuous loop. One great example is actually Vice Media. I don't know if you guys have heard of them, but they have an HBO show, but they started off as a funded channel actually on YouTube. And they've done really well. And Tom Freston, who used to be the head of Viacom and is now on the board of Vice, actually was quoted as saying that he sees everything that they do for the HBO show merely as a movie trailer for everything that they do online, which I think is a fascinating way of looking at it, because it's sort of a reversal of how traditional media has looked at what they do online.
So for any of you, how do you think the budgets of the MCNs and web series compare to the budgets of the TV-sized productions like House of Cards for Netflix? And do you think that enters into a creator's decision of where to take his or her project?
Oh, I haven't spoken in a minute, so
Tom?
I'll talk to
Okay,
it. Sure, of course it does. Look, there's only a handful of places, Netflix, Amazon, Yahoo, where we're doing a handful of bigger budget TV show style shows. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's really, we see a lot of things that clearly and openly have been shopped around. Hopefully they're coming to digital because they want to do something that's creatively outside of the wheelhouse of maybe some of the networks or cable channels they've pitched. But I think that we're experimenting. We're releasing two shows in the next handful of months. We'll see how they do. There might be, if it all goes well, we might do a lot more. And if it doesn't go well, you might not see any more on Yahoo. And that's okay. We do plenty of other things. But my point is, like, we talk about that stuff, but if you think about the number of original series that are made by a primarily digital distributor, it's not a ton in the long form range. So almost by definition, it's things that, look, they just need the money to produce it. And that money can only come from a handful of companies. I think if you look at the shows, you know what they cost. It's not like there's a big savings like there used to be in digital. If you look at a TV show, you can tell that was, House of Cards costs more than Insert X. So, but the great news there is more and more people, such as Yahoo, are saying, well, there's something going on here. Let's write some checks and try it. So it's a great time to be pitching things in.
Yeah, producers love to hear that. So I just read an article that major brands are trying to transform themselves to full-fledged media companies like the MCNs. And Red Bull actually has just established a major media arm, Red Bull Media House. And when you look at their website, they engage the consumers with videos, and you don't necessarily see even a can of Red Bull anyplace. So for each of you, can you talk about the role of branded entertainment in your respective companies, and how does it compare or complement traditional advertising, video and demand distribution model, branded advertising?
We've taken a look at the relative economics of actually the Red Bull parachute from space, which actually cost a fair bit of money. And if you actually work out the ad placements it got, it's probably as effective as normal advertising. What I think is really cool about it is it's really cool if you watch that video, and it really positions them as an edgy, fun, interesting brand. When you see the people cheering at the end when the guy lands and all that, it's a very emotional moment. And we see in corporates, in success, these success stories do work out, but what isn't always seen is the downside, or the videos that are produced for a bit of money that actually don't make it and don't become viral success. So I'd say right now it's a little bit on the knife edge, that you are getting some things that are actually more cost effective than traditional advertising, but it's not all cases. And so it's the successful ones like Red Bull, who have a bit more of a track record, a little bit more of a success rate, that are actually making it work. The rest of corporate America is a little bit divided.
So Yemi or Tom or John, what about the role of branded entertainment in your respective companies?
Sure. Well, one thing that I always ask our brand partners when we're working together is, what's your goal? So depending on what the campaign is, we can have different goals in a brand entertainment venture. Is the goal to expose an audience that ordinarily would never look at your brand to your brand, or is your goal to get a certain sell-through for the holiday season, and so you need a click-through rate? Is your goal to align yourself as a trusted beauty brand? It's going to depend, and so the metric is going to vary on each campaign. And so how we select talent, how we determine what audience makes the most sense for, and what time of day makes the most sense for a brand, is all an ongoing and rolling conversation. And each campaign can look very different, again, depending on what that initial goal. But for us, it's an extremely important part of our business. And I think for talent, it has become an increasingly important portion of their business as well, because editorial opportunities end up coming up through branded entertainment vendors, which again expose them to a new audience. So for the talent, the goal can be partially about the brand, but maybe about getting new audience. It can also open up potential opportunities on television, maybe not as an actor, sort of full time in a series, but being able to be placed in a commercial to open up new lines of business. So we see it as a very integral part of how we grow. Again, the stickiness. We talk a lot about stickiness. We talk a lot about the organic nature of the things that we do, and how we seed into the consciousness a interest in the type of content that we provide. And so that business is the tip of the spear in doing that, and how we can keep and attract someone like the #1 YouTuber out there. PewDiePie is in our network, and many of the other top YouTubers.
Yeah, well,
So
Yeah,
I
I
think, I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
I found that it's really been the marketers that have pushed the digital envelope really for the last 15 years. And there's a different goal, right? You're not looking necessarily to monetize the content, so it doesn't matter. Question is, are you able to resonate with your consumers or your potential consumers, or to engage in a more interactive discussion with them? A number of the channel deals I've done have been for brands, so it was about having another advertising, marketing, promotion channel more than it was to really monetize content. But one of the things that I think brands have to be concerned about, and also content creators that are working for brands to create branded entertainment, is that line between editorial content and advertising, because it's getting more and more blurred. Everyone's probably familiar with the term native advertising.
Yeah.
Everybody raise your hands if you're familiar with native advertising. Right. So, so the problem with an advertisement that it seems like it's editorial, there's two pieces of it. One side of the coin is the advertising laws. The fact that the FTC, the state UDAPs, even the advertising agency self-regulatory organizations like NAD are going to require that if something is making a claim or has a promotional purpose, and it is not readily apparent to a consumer that it is sponsored or paid for an advertisement, that has to be disclosed. And all the rules that apply to false advertising, that you have substantiation to back up all the claims that are being made, is in place. The other piece of it, the other side of that coin, has to do with a different level of First Amendment protection for advertisers as opposed to editorial content publishers. And so you're seeing a lot of brands get in trouble now because they're associating themselves by engaging in a conversation about a celebrity or any other person for that matter. And they think that they're just part of the conversation. The problem is the celebrities can take the position, this is a violation of my rights of publicity, it's an implied endorsement, I get paid to be associated with a brand. A pure content producer might be able to talk about me because I'm a matter of public interest, but you as a brand, you can't. Anyone gotten a letter from Marty Singer yet?
I have.
He sent out a letter to quite a number of places.
It's just a rite of passage.
I'll just add to that for a second. Yahoo brand is it's very important, but it's also very important to make that distinction because we are a platform. We have users that, hey, you're watching something that's been paid for by advertisers and not sort of tricked into watching what you thought was a entertainment show, but is actually a Ford commercial. Hopefully it's both. But that said, it's actually people tend to be a little cynical about brand entertainment. We've actually done some really good shows that it fills a gap for us we wouldn't have been able to do, not because we didn't think the shows were great. We thought the shows were great. They're just a little far afield for our general audience or sort of creative direction. So if it's, I don't know about the rest of the panel. Ironically, I've had the bigger the deals, almost less trouble with the brand entertainment and more can do just better shows and more entertainment because the big brands are into it. Just like, yeah, do your thing. We just want people to kind of notice we're in the background somewhere and not micromanage it. Whether they'll all become Red Bull, they all want to, right? They all want, will an airline own the travel space? Well, who knows? That's sort of the next evolution of that. And that's what they're all talking to us about all the time, but in a way, then they become competitors in a sense. So,
well, John,
so yeah, just to take it back to kind of the top level of how MCNs relate to all of this as well.
right.
When you look at YouTube, every top brand has a YouTube brand channel. And so a long time ago, and by that I mean 2 years ago, pretty much every brand channel was just full of TV ads. It was just used as a repository of their old ads, and no one was watching those. And they realized that they had to get much more sophisticated because, let's face it, no one wants to watch ads, right? We all have DVRs. YouTube now has something called TrueView where you can skip the ads after a couple seconds, which has been great, but that means it's much more difficult to get to the viewer. And so you have to make much more compelling content that people would actually want to watch on its own merits. And so I think like a great example of this, where a brand collaborated with an MCN's creator, is actually a cat's guide to taking care of your humans. I don't know if any of you have heard about that. So Zay Frank, who's part of an MCN, he's known for making these really great, witty videos that he narrates, and it's sort of footage about like some weird sea creature or animal out there. And so Purina saw that he was getting such great hits on that, and they hired him to create some content for them, and it was for their new cat litter. So basically, he created this series of videos, and it's from the perspective of the cat, who goes around and looks at the human and kind of is like, wow, that's really bizarre what the human's doing. For example, like the cat doesn't understand why the human sits with this weird thing called a light box, for so long, which is of course your laptop. And then they also, comment that humans are weirdly hairless, and so they have to sit on their heads, every morning to warm them up, that kind of thing. But it's that type of content which actually was forwarded to me randomly by a friend, and not, just as kind of a work thing. And that was because they thought that video was so funny. And I watched it not as an ad, but just as a regular piece of content. So I think that's the type of content out there that's going to really make brands successful. And you see that MCNs are starting to create some of that content on behalf of brands, but also you also have brands, like one of the biggest brands I can think of is Ellen. And she has an MCN actually managing her YouTube channel. So, I mean, you have ways of interacting with MCNs on this type of content in many different ways.
So a content creator who wants to monetize and expand not only the YouTube channels, but also their presence on other digital platforms and maybe even offline, how would they negotiate their deal with YouTube so they can transition from YouTube to other platforms?
So it's a super easy negotiation where we just give them our contract because it's already non-exclusive. So we highly encourage people to go off-platform for the reasons that I already mentioned, because we see that reinforcement loop in terms of their YouTube numbers.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, and we at Maker, we have multiple off YouTube deals that allow our content creators to syndicate their content to many other places, and it's something we also encourage.
So,
but I would say that most people don't really think through the rights to all their stuff, and they might negotiate with Celebrity X to put some stuff onto YouTube or Maker, but don't really think about the rights to put it onto a cable platform or what have you. And I'd say it's just very difficult because people don't think it through. It's not necessarily these guys, but talent and other things that are gumming up the works and making that happen.
Well, I think, yeah, I think everyone is slowly becoming a more sophisticated player, right? And you have people like Fullscreen who's had to, do kind of music license deals to kind of, back up some situations they've been in the past. And so you've had people sort of catch up to where they should be as a real player in the market, as an adult, as I like to say. And so that's what's happening for sure across the board.
I think we normally think of content going from online to television with the hopes that you build up enough popularity for it that it can migrate. But one thing to think about is, what about the opposite? Let's say you are lucky enough to get something optioned and have a pilot made, but the pilot doesn't get picked up. So you've got your classic turnaround deal, which is going to include a lien against the reverted rights for the cost of producing that pilot. So if you've got $1.5 million, $2 million more lien on your rights, it's not going to have a second life online. But I've had a pretty good success in getting no lien on television production costs when something reverts, if it is only going to be exploited in new media, so long as the budget of a per episode or per minute isn't comparable to what a television budget would be. A couple of years ago, that didn't even come up, but now the fact that there are made-for-internet shows that are as expensive or more expensive than some television shows, that I'm not able to get a free pass, but I am able to get a sort of a low budget internet pass on the wing.
Are there examples of that?
Yeah.
Where you've had- I'm sorry. Do you have examples of where you had pilot got canceled and did find the lifeline?
I do, but I can't say because
Yeah.
the
No,
attorney.
that's an interesting
confidentiality, but-
turnaround of it.
And we see them too, and are hopefully doing well. But yeah, I
So-
can't really talk about it. But
Talking about the deals, what for each of you, John, Yemi, Tom, Alan, Dan, whoever, just jump in. What are the major issues and deal points that come up in digital deals that are unique to digital deals, and what are the deal points that are more similar to the TV shows that we're talking about?
I mean, since it's sort of on topic here,
Mhm.
what has been interesting to see over the last handful of years is a lot of these deal points that you used to be able to say, oh, we'll negotiate in good faith down the road or whatnot are coming up, which is a good sign. I think it means the industry is more vital, and we're seeing success stories. So people now it's not just hypothetical. Shows are going from digital to cable and vice versa. So one of the biggest challenges I think that is sort of taken for granted in traditional media, you know what a film distributor is trying to do, and while their windows are collapsing and they're changing, you more or less know what a cable or broadcast network's plan is. They've been doing it for a long time. With digital, it's sort of like there's an impression, it seems, that you push a few buttons and suddenly it's there, and it's actually a lot of work, and you need a distribution plan, whether you're managing your own rights or it's a company doing it. So I think one difference is sort of getting more into the nitty gritty, at least even if it doesn't make its way into the deal, but in the discussion of what exactly does it mean to have a show on Yahoo? What exactly does it mean to have a show on YouTube and then maybe take it, syndicate it out and so forth?
John, Yemi, what points do you see in digital deals that are different or similar to TV?
So a couple of things. I think that, this regulatory issue that Alan brought up earlier in terms of the FTC and managing and leveraging risk is a purely sort of legal answer. That's a deal point that sometimes gets negotiated differently depending on the partner, and a very serious one. So we look at that. Also, what's been interesting is in terms of promotion, because we're on a global platform, we have multi-jurisdictional sort of legal issues. If you wanted to have a contest, then the content may have to live in a different place because the contest rules on YouTube are 18 and up, US only, blah, blah. So if you want to promote to an audience outside the US, how do we do that? Where can we put the content first? Do we window? Those kinds of things on a sort of a business to business level are some of the issues that come up. And then from a talent perspective, I think one of the things that we look at and we have to manage always is repurposing. A lot of times brand partners want to be able to repurpose the content after the initial flight or campaign, which may be a short, narrow campaign, but there may be an interest in the life of that content or those social media posts afterwards. And so there's always a dance and negotiation around what that repurposing, if any, would look like post campaign.
Yeah. So, but say on YouTube, John, do they require any kind of warranties and indemnities that everything is original and that they're going to hold you to harmless or anything like that?
So yeah, I mean, as a platform, we don't do a bunch of investigation into whether or not you've cleared your content. So we have to do the same type of negotiations around, reps and warranties and indemnities. So that's one thing I would say is the same in terms of us and traditional media. One thing I was like kind of laughing to myself about was I used to work at Sony Pictures before YouTube, and I remember looking at various agreements with producers and such, and you look at the net profit definition and the waterfalls. Some of you guys may have seen those types of agreements, and they go on for like many pages. And so I think in our universe, it's much simpler in terms of how people calculate what kind of revenues they get from everything. And we're again a non-exclusive platform, so we don't have to worry as much about windowing. That's more on kind of our partner side to kind of think that through. Same with sort of geographical or territorial limitations. We don't worry about that as much because we tend to be more of a global platform. So we want the global rights, and the partner can sort of choose, what kind of territories they want to give us just through the metadata feed. So those are all things that I think, are a little bit less so than traditional media. I think one thing that, I would echo what Tom said in terms of it's harder to know kind of how we're going to be dealing with this content, just even in the next year or 2 years, especially because, there are whole new types of technology that are coming out. The content itself may stay the same, but at the same time, how you use that content and what platforms you put it on and have the rights to be able to put it on, or what kind of content security that you're going to apply to that content, all that kind of stuff has been changing so fast that it's really hard to kind of try to pre-negotiate those rights to. So that's been a huge challenge for us because we want to be very upfront and honest about how we're going to be using this content, but at the same time, we have no idea what kind of innovations our engineers are going to have in the future.
So how do you harness the user data? Any of you, John or Yemi or Tom, how do you harness user data to improve the user experience, to increase their revenues? And what do you see as the biggest data privacy and security challenges with this?
Well, a couple of things, and I'll jump in initially. One thing that we are able to do, YouTube is so great in terms of the number of tools that the creators have and the insights and analytics that they can get. So, one way that we use some of the information that we get is we may be able to better target in terms of ads and have interesting ads. So as you're watching, sort of there's a we can keep you sustained through because we have ads that are targeted that make sense for the particular demo. One other thing that we do is that, I think there's an opportunity to figure out what collaborations make the most sense. Again, for a continuous and sustained watch time, we can use some of those insights in those kinds of ways internally to better target the user experience. And, we, I think, are careful about, not digging for tools that or for data or that's not already given to us in a way that is, not personally identifiable. I think the more sort of hands-off we can be, we're happy with the suite of information that we get in through the analytical tools available on the YouTube platform. And then in terms of other, data issues and privacy issues, we, have, I think, consistently worked to stay away from those as much as possible. We operate general audience sites, for example. We don't do, things that target kids or things like that, which keep us clear of, CARU guidelines, COPA things. So that's one way that we've tried to keep our lives simple in that way. And it's great that, YouTube, a general audience site that's 13 and up, and, all of those things help with those issues on our end.
So what are the trends, and any of you can answer this, what are the trends that you're noticing in the digital space? Like what kind of online stores or programming are the most popular and are gaining popularity now?
I can jump in again. If folks want to. So, one area that's really, hot for us is in life and style, these unboxing videos. So you go to and unboxing videos, but then also haul videos. You go to the mall, you buy a bunch of stuff, and then you turn on your camera when you get home and you reveal your haul and you go through everything that you've gotten at the various stores on the malls. That type of video is very popular right now. Getting, unboxing videos where you get the first iPhone. Remember that guy that opened his, it dropped on the floor and he broke it like the moment he got it. That's a type of unboxing video that not necessarily, one of our videos, but that type of thing is very popular. A lot of tutorials. One thing that we did that was kind of cool was right around the release of Maleficent. We did a makeup tutorial so that Candy Johnson showed how to do that movie level makeup to recreate that Maleficent look. So sometimes that behind the scenes kind of interesting stuff. You've seen the things like that ALS Ice Bucket Challenge took off virally, just the Cinnamon Challenge, which was for something totally silly and ridiculous. But taking that same format, that challenge format, is also one that's very popular right now. And then, we're getting near the holidays, so you'll start seeing a lot of gameplay videos that are going to be coming out around video games, as well as other types of games. You'll see a lot of those videos that are very traditionally and consistently popular among their audience.
So John, is something like Smosh Games very popular on YouTube?
Oh yeah,
or-
so gaming is a huge
Yeah.
presence, obviously on YouTube, and I think it's related to the idea of again, community, because when you take a look at someone like PewDiePie, who is a game commentator out of Sweden, he basically operates from his bedroom, and he has 30 million subscribers, which is just crazy. And just recently, he was named the most powerful man in Sweden.
Wow.
By their biggest national magazine. So I mean, that's crazy, because basically with 30 million subscribers, he has the ability, the power to influence the whole market around whatever new game comes out. And if he comments on it and he loves it, sales spike from that. So I mean, that's a crazy amount of influence that he has. So I would say in general, people like that, YouTube creators who used to be thought of by traditional media or manufacturers or whoever as sort of small time, they've become huge in that respect. I think we are also seeing a lot of YouTube creators look at new formats. For example, and I know we may talk about this a little bit more, long form. So people always think of YouTube as this kind of short form environment, but you have someone like Freddie Wong, who's part of The Collective, which is an MCN. He actually created this whole series called Video Game High School, which is a series of episodes, and each episode, the first episode was 40 minutes long, and that has millions of views. And that was something that no one thought was really possible on YouTube. So I think that's a whole experiment that was actually pretty successful around that. You also see YouTube creators expanding their presence offline. So there was a whole article, I think in the Journal or somewhere like that, which talked about how publishers, book publishers, are now harnessing the popularity of these YouTube creators and actually getting book deals with them because they already target this great demographic. So those are just a couple examples.
Well, we only have a few minutes left, so I'll open it up to questions. Yes, the gentleman in the back, and then you.
Talking about MCNs, as an example, PewDiePie, is that guy with an MCN? Does it matter? And if he signed with an MCN, what are the changes that he would expect? What would happen?
So Yemi, you want to take that?
He signed with Maker Studios. He's with us, and he has an additional sales team. I mean, YouTube's already selling against his channel. We have an in-house sales team that will also help sell his inventory and bring in opportunities for him, just like we would with any other creator. For example, is one of the benefits that he would get by joining an MCN. Is also potentially there are production resources that open up. We have our own full studio as well. So there are a lot of different opportunities.
Lady in front of you.
Thanks. Hi. Thanks, you guys. Really great panel. Do you guys have any insight onto how to get older people onto YouTube? Like, say, people above the 18 to 34 demographic? Because I'm sure that advertisers would be really interested if baby boomers who have a lot of cash, and people like that were on YouTube.
We're hoping
people with
that's
a lot of
called
cash.
Yahoo.
It's called the what?
So we're hoping to do more of that at Yahoo, essentially bring the older audience we have, getting them used to watching this stuff.
That's your
It's
target,
talent.
huh?
It's,
Yeah.
well, sometimes. Everyone's
there you go.
a target.
And I will say, like, just speaking of the older demographic, one of my favorite aspects of YouTube is I discovered that there are actually old people on YouTube who have found YouTube to be their platform in the sense of they've created video diaries about their lives, which is amazing, right? Because it's sort of like their own autobiography that they're filming, and they just talk to the camera, so it's super simple. But it's amazing because they talk about everything that happened in their lives because they feel like no one else is listening until they've actually filmed it, and I think that's super cool.
Yeah. Oh, this gentleman and.
Yeah, one of the goals I think with content creators is to drive traffic to their own platform. YouTube, what's the strategy, or Yahoo, what's the strategy for putting a video up and using it to attract people and drive them to your own website, for example? Can you have a link or not, or any other way of driving traffic?
Yes, on YouTube, there are features that allow you to kind of drive traffic. Some people do use it as a promotional platform, and you can add annotations basically to these videos, or you can do a call out at the end and talk about your own, owned and operated site. So there are many different ways that people look at it. I think what people have found, though, is that most of the traffic still ends up on YouTube, and that's the best way to kind of monetize that. But I'm sure, other people have been successful pushing it over to other sites as well.
Well, as you said, you can monetize it through rev share for advertising, but not for selling products or promoting other, for revenue sources.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I'd say, we're getting the kill signal back is brand sponsorships and integrations. Our creators receive 100% of all that revenue, so that's not part of the ads revenue share.
I'd say this one last question, this gentleman here.
If you wanted to create a multi-channel network on YouTube, how much money do you have to bring to them? How would you set that up? It seems to be mysterious.
Exactly $5. No, I honestly have no idea. It depends on what your vision is for the MCN and what kind of content you want to create or what your strategy is. If you recall, like all the different ways that MCNs operate, it really depends.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
I'm on yeah. It's right by me. Hi. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Oh, yeah, you saw it. Yeah. No, I love it too. I just rewatched it last night, actually. I was like, yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, well, I have my own little production company, and we've sold like reality content to country music channels. So, like, I just do that for fun, actually. I do well, and I love writing. It works well. Well, it's hard. Everything is really slow, basically. all my creative stuff takes way longer than I'd like. Yeah.
So it's going to depend on the brand. So for a lifestyle brand or a fashion brand or something like that, product placement works. So putting your product in a haul video, the haul from the mom, having your cool Arizona theme be a part of the haul is huge. And which is different than an experiential, live activation kind of thing, or Devin jumping off the top of some stadium like he's doing with us. So it very much works. It's still
you never know, right? It's one of those things that right now I'm not working on it tomorrow. Products not working out on this media solution. So you license it out.
Oh, another platform.
Yeah, because I get lots of time.
That's not my, my native, my area I work in day in and day out. Sure. Right. What did the Italian
for sure. They don't have any with
so potentially it depends on